right at the camera? Or
Doesn't
just
matter.
to communicate with you? Okay.
We're rolling.
Okay, this is an interview at Division of Military Naval Affairs Headquarters, Latham, New York. It is the 14th of March, 2007, approximately 2:30 p.m. Interviewers are Mike Russert and Wayne Clark. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Denise Sherman. My place of birth is Schenectady, New York. And
When?
When? It was 19 January 1974.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
I graduated high school from Mount Pleasant High School that's located in Schenectady, New York. And when I was 18, I went right into the Air National Guard.
Why did you decide to go into the Air National Guard?
Well, we had a career day at senior time during our senior years, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to college or if I wanted to go into the military. So I had a master sergeant at the time, Sergeant Ryerson, came to our school. He brought a group of us out to the air base and was able to show us all of the, everything that they did, their mission and everything that they did involved with Antarctica. Also came back and met a lot of people that were there and got a little bit of an insight. And that day I realized that I wanted to join the military instead of going to college. So right after, or during that time, I was able to go through my physical and talked to a bunch of recruiters regarding basic training, went out to the MEPS, and I signed. It was July 2nd, 1992 was when I actually enlisted, and went to basic training to Lackland Air Force Base, and that was in October of 1992. And went to Mississippi to Cleesler Air Force Base, and during that time, a few weeks after, and came back home in January of 2000, or actually 1993.
So after basic, you went on to an additional school?
Mm-hmm.
And what school was that?
That was for information management specialist, and that was for automation and administrative background.
Okay. Did you find that training adequate for the job you would be doing back?
For the job that I was doing back home, initially yes. I mean, you did a lot of admin skills. They brought you up to speed with that and working with the computers. Before then, I didn't really work too much with. Actually, I did work a little bit with them, especially being an admin assistant in school during the school district. But I got a little bit more involved in it in the military side, so I was able to learn a little bit more about the programs and presentations and briefings that way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now, when did you leave the Air Guard?
I left the Air Guard in October of 2000. During that time, I was in E6. Actually, I was on my way to get an E6, but I left because I kind of got stagnant in my job, and it wasn't a lot of upward mobility. So it seemed like the Army National Guard had tons of positions and tons of slots for officers, so I decided to switch over, go to OCS, and became an officer right in 2002. It was. I became an officer.
Did you go through ESMA down at Camp Smith?
Yes, I went through Camp Smith, through OCS, started in 2001, and it was a year-long program.
Mm-hmm.
In June of 2000, June 29th, 2002 is when I actually graduated from there. And then before then was 9/11, so he wasn't sure what our role was going to be right in the middle of that.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I went to my advanced course, actually my basic course that was in Fort Lee in Virginia. I went there for about 4 months.
Did you get called up at all for 9/11?
No, I did. We did duty here, right in the facility, right in Latham,
Mm-hmm.
and we moved a lot of people forward down there. But I was still doing training, so I really couldn't be pulled that much
Mm-hmm.
since we're doing OCS.
Okay.
And then from there, came back and went to basic course in Virginia. After that, in 2004 was when I was mobilized to Iraq. Went with the 206 Corps Support Battalion. But before then, I was a detachment commander with the 369th Quartermaster Battalion in Rome, New York. And from there, I was there for probably about a couple years. I think it was about a couple years that I was there for. And before then, not before then, but during that time, that's when mobilization started uprising and everyone was leaving and a lot of shortages, so I was cross-leveled from my unit into another unit, which was the 206 Corps Support Battalion. That was in Queens, New York, or Brooklyn, New York. And that was an experience in itself. But
So you still lived in this area but commuted back and forth? Or?
I commuted to Rome, New York, yes.
Okay.
I still stayed in this area.
Okay.
And just commuted for drills and whatever else we had throughout the month. It was a good learning experience. I was able to be in a leadership position, to be able to work with soldiers and at a different level and be able to influence them in their careers and education-wise. So it was a good background, good experience. And
Now with the support battalion, they were out of where?
Brooklyn,
Brooklyn.
New York.
Why was that interesting? You said that was interesting.
It was interesting because I wasn't expecting to be mobilized with that unit. Usually when you do prepare to go to war, you usually train with your troops that you're actually leading. So I was looking forward to doing that with the Water Battalion and going over in the Quartermaster support to Iraq. So when I was cross-leveled, went through an SRP in April. It was cross-leveled by September of 2004, and I left in October of 2004. So it was that was the first experience with being in a city unit. I've been to the city a lot of times, but working with the people is different from working with people in Rome. So very diverse, and I had a good time. A good time, had ups and downs, but it was a learning experience, just working with different personalities and going and training and getting there, and then coming back was the biggest thing.
Now that patch you're wearing on your right sleeve, was that still the first Logistic Command, or did that name change?
Yes, first their support, I forgot what it's actually, TSB, I'm not sure what it changed, but it was first COSCON, Corps Support Command.
Okay.
That's what we were, and now it changed to something else right now.
Now was that an airborne unit?
Yep, right out of Fort Bragg.
Okay.
So yes, when they got there, they were our higher headquarters, and so we fell underneath them when we got into theater. And then they left like midpoint and switched over to 3rd COSCON. So.
Now when you went over, did you go straight into Iraq or did you go into Kuwait first?
Went through Kuwait, went through Camp Buehring, and did a little training, not a little training, but it was intense training, just dealing with the population, learning to deal with the population, and wasn't sure, just for convoy training. Actually, it was CLP training at the time, combat logistic patrols, instead of they merged away from convoys, but convoys is a term that people are familiar with. So did a lot of that, clearing buildings, working indirect fire and direct fire, and how to react to things like that. So, and just being able to mingle with the people. So they had a good training set up in Kuwait and prepared us what was to come when we got to Iraq.
Do you think you were well prepared with this training?
I feel so, yes. Just dealing with the weapon systems. I mean, right then, that was the first time I was introduced to the M4. Before, I mean, we had our M16 training before then, so we're using the M4 a little bit at that time, so that was interesting. And
did you like that better than the M16?
yes, I was able to maneuver a lot better with that weapon. So, and I still stayed with the M16 throughout my time, but just training with it and just getting a feel. But right now, for our new forces that are going over to Iraq right now, we're trying to establish them with the M4. So that's a good weapon system to have them. Hopefully every soldier from the National Guard have going over this time around.
How long were you in Kuwait?
We were in Kuwait. I was on the Advan, so I left before the rest of the unit. I got there, I believe it was the 16th, I believe, of December. And then we left Kuwait, I believe it was December 31st, and we began work, actually doing our duties January 1st, so I remember it was New Year's Day. And I remember being in Kuwait and training. It was Christmas Day, we were training, Christmas Eve. So that was kind of hard, being away from home and calling home on our cell phones that worked in the beginning at the time. And calling home was hearing everyone back home and going through the festivities. So, and then it was pouring rain on us at the time, but it was. We had a makeshift tree just for morale. We exchanged gifts, what we could get. I mean, either there were some things that people gave out books, or what did I get? It was a mirror. Actually, it was a light that went over the book. Little simple gifts, but it was just thought that for us being able to be around and gather and have our Christmas. So that was.
Now, do you have a family?
Yes, I have a husband, and he was back home, a very, very big supporter. He was my biggest supporter. I call him my biggest fan.
Now, was he in the military too, or no?
He was in the Marines in the beginning, probably when he first got out of high school. He went to the Marines, and he served one term there, and then he got out after. But I think one member in the military is enough right now. But
So you didn't have any children that you left behind?
No. No, unfortunately I didn't have to go through that, or fortunately I didn't have to go through that experience. I know that there are many mothers and fathers that left their children behind, and starting at 4 months, because usually 4 months is when you're actually deployable for a mother. And I met a few soldiers that did leave their young ones behind, and that was difficult for them. Because I look at other people and I can imagine just leaving a 4-month-old baby behind, knowing I just had that child not too long ago. So I can just imagine the emotional part of it that they had to deal with. So, but there was a few of them that did, when they were over there, that they had, since they were on active duty basis, they had webcams, technology today, let us have webcams so they at least could see what was going on any time of the day with their child. So I thought that was a good tool that the military provided for them to do that. So at least can see their kid grow up day by day instead of being a shocking after 6 months later.
What was Iraq like? Where were you stationed in Iraq?
I was stationed in the city was on Nasiriyah. It was the southern part of Iraq, and the base was Talil Air Force Base.
Did you come under fire at all while you were there?
I mean, they had indirect fire. I mean, we had a mortar that came in towards the end of our time. I mean, when we first got there, probably like a few months ago, they had a mortar land. When we were there, fortunately not until towards the end, that's when it seemed like it started to get a little bit heated. They always said the summer months, it seemed like it got a little heated during the summer months, and it did. I mean, we had soldiers trying to penetrate our line, trying to get through our gates. We had, not soldiers, but Iraqis trying to get through the gates, either just driving straight. One Iraqi just drove through our security, but our security was pretty far out before we even got to the inner part of the base, so that was good. We had an Italian compound that was there, co-located in our area, and a mortar hit their area instead of like where we worked at. So I still keep in touch with some people that were over there and keep up to date with what's going on. And I know that the dining facility did get hit. The SSA, the supply service activity, did get hit. It seemed like it came under fire a lot more since we've been there since 2005. So.
Now, as transportation officer, did you go out on, what do you call them, coordinated combat logistic patrols?
I didn't go on the COPs. I went out outside the wire a few times driving, flying a little bit more, but me leaving, since it was a high visibility position, I mean, and just knowing that your soldiers are on the road, and I was a battle captain during that time, so me leaving the office was pretty not possible, unfortunately. Everything had to be coordinated to getting their intelligence, making sure the soldiers were properly outfitted with their gear, make sure they had their water, their gasoline, anything for them to be on the road to be able to survive, and just make sure that they had enough ammo. Just going through their pre-combat checks and inspections, going out there and just making sure that they do it, that they're well established before they go outside the wire.
Did you make any modifications to the vehicles to protect them?
The modifications, by the time we were Operation Iraqi Freedom 3, so we were the third rotation, by the time just working with getting a little bit of feedback from the soldiers that were there in the first and second, I've learned that they were out there without any modifications on their vehicles. There weren't any, I can't even think of our up armored vehicles. I'm sorry. There weren't any up armor on the vehicles. I mean, they were just regular vehicles that we would have, and the units here, they would be out there in the field. And then, which was surprising because by the time we got out there, anything outside the wire had to be up armored. So I couldn't imagine just them going out there outside the wire as they did without any up armoring from the IEDs or any mortars or anything like that.
Were any of your people fired on?
Yes, there's the transportation companies that fell underneath our battalion. There's a few instances that did happen that they had indirect fire. Close, usually when we're on the MSRs, they're pretty far out. Well, a lot of times they're pretty far out, but you could hear, you still can hear the rounds coming by, but couldn't always see somebody. Mm-hmm. So for direct, I think that it was minimal. There wasn't that much direct. It was pretty much indirect and random as they're driving up the MSRs or the ASRs to their locations. So I know that there's a couple, one was put in for the Purple Heart when we were out there. He didn't want to, didn't feel like he should. He felt like he didn't deserve it, but we knew that that was right for him. He had glass in his eye when he came under attack. His windshield had blown, so he got the glass in the eye, and he had a concussion and things like that, an injury to his head. Mm-hmm. So. But he sustained. He became all right. He still stayed with us. He wasn't. He didn't leave our AO and be redeployed back home. So that was good.
Now, what were your living conditions like?
Living conditions were pretty good. I was very fortunate. We lived in trailers. I had a roommate. Everything was sectioned off with barriers and everything like that. So the conditions weren't bad. That was one of our concerns, were how we're going to live within the elements. You had sandstorms, you had rainstorms, and everything else that was out there, so we wasn't sure how that was going to work out. But I think we were pretty blessed and pretty fortunate to be able to live in actually a container unit. So.
What were the sandstorms like?
Our first one happened probably like an early part of the year. I was inside when it did happen, so I couldn't, the sand was inside the buildings, of course. We try to cover up the windows as best we can, but for the soldiers being out on the road, that's where it really hit the hardest. So, they were out there driving, and then all of a sudden a sandstorm comes past, and that's pretty difficult for them, especially for the gunner.
Was there a lot of extra maintenance with the vehicles because of that?
Exactly, yes there was. The critical thing, I think the biggest thing, was your maintenance. Although everything else, with your weapons and systems and everything like that, but if your vehicle's not running and it goes down, because the turnaround rate for our vehicles was either one day and they had to be on the road the next day. So once they came back from the mission, they had to go back, have their maintenance day and then go back on the road. So we're turning them, we're burning them pretty quickly. So, but we drove a lot of miles on those vehicles, and they went down pretty quickly. But then we tried to do the best we can and try to get them right back up and get them back out on the road. It impacted, if we had the amount of vehicles and the support that we could provide to to other units, impacted how many missions we could actually do before that came down.
What was your food like? Did you have a contractor?
Yes, we had a contract food system. I'm trying to think of it. My favorite day, we had seafood day. It was on Thursdays. So that piece, I think the living conditions and the food, I think that was a morale booster. For me, I know that, but I know that a lot of people had the ice cream and they had seafood. Like my thing was seafood, so. But the food, I can't say I couldn't complain. I had a bunch of packages my husband and my mother-in-law and my family had given me, so I was pretty spoiled. And that was a good thing, but then there's other soldiers that didn't receive a lot of things. So I try to share with them what we have, but I had boxes. Sometimes I think the most boxes I received in one day was 8 or 9 boxes. So it was good just to feel the love back at home. But then, like I said, it was sad just not to see that there are soldiers that didn't receive anything. And I didn't think that was appropriate. I mean, when we all go over, I think, I don't know how everyone's family situation was, but that's the biggest support system that I see. And unfortunately, I was very blessed to have my husband and have a relationship that we did, because not everyone had that. And I had a lot of soldiers that had a lot of issues with wives or spouses back at home and going through the banning in or depleting their checking accounts, and just a lot of hardships that went on. But I mean, you try to make the best that you can while you're there and try to support them and get them through it as best, because while you're there, it's a mental game. I mean, you can easily just get sucked in. So try to make it the best environment that we could do at that time.
What did you have for entertainment on the base?
We had people that came over that supported the USO. I mean, they had the cheerleaders come over. They had Billy Blanks came over, and he and his wife, they came over and they were at the gym, and they had anyone who wanted to work out with him go there. I didn't see any really entertainers really, because I was always working, so I couldn't get out. My biggest thing was getting out and watching a movie. So they would have a big screen out there and built it up, really make it seem like you're in a movie theater. And they would, it was outdoors. I mean, if you go up north, they actually had a theater. It was outdoors, and they put chairs and everything out, and they had a projector. So then they would actually put out the current movies that were probably over here. So it was good. I mean, have a movie night, have popcorn and stuff out there. So.
Did you wear your body armor all the time, or?
In the beginning we did, and then during certain times, I mean, we would have be signaled and warned to put them on, and during certain threat levels, we would have to put them back on.
Did you carry your weapon and all the time?
Every day we carried our weapon, and we had our ammo with us.
Do you ever have much contact with the local people at all?
I mean, the local people was on our posts, but for me, I didn't work with them all the time. I mean, we had our unit was in charge of supporting training Iraqis in another location, so we interacted with them probably like on every couple of month basis. We supported them a month each day, but for interaction for them to come down, we would have our meetings and everything together. That would happen like every couple of months. But our mission was to train them to become a transportation battalion, so they can, as you know, take over the missions and actually run Iraq themselves.
Do you think you were successful while you were there in doing that, completing that mission?
From getting the feedback, working with the Iraqis, they were there in initially just them working with the weapons and just working just with that and shooting. I guess us, when we get there, when we're trained, we shoot at a target. For them, I guess when they shoot, they think that they just shoot and not really point and aim and think that Allah is going to direct the bullet to get to where its location is going to be. But I think the concept after so many months and getting it instilled in them, I think they realize now of what they had to do and their role in becoming more of a soldier and not run away. There were some that ran away from the fight instead of, I mean, as us being soldiers, were there to be in the fight and not run away, not leave anyone behind. And I think that happened a lot in the beginning, that you would have those who were providing gun truck support or riding in the tractor trailers, they would leave instead of support the rest of the element. So I think that became much better over the time.
Were there any things while you were there that left a greater impression on you than others? Or any
There was
persons? Or
when we had a unit in the beginning when we were there, as us being a National Guard unit. They prepared us for it, or we just would hear that the active component was treated the National Guard differently and felt like that they couldn't work together. So when I got there, there was a unit that was an active component unit, which was Staff Sergeant Nealon was the person in the 249th Quartermaster unit. Unfortunately, that unit was inactive, or they left our battalion to go to another battalion. But under our watch, he was a transportation officer, no, a transportation motor sergeant, and I worked with him closely. And during missions, he would take his soldiers out, and I would work through him to work down to the soldiers, handing out missions, and them doing the all the way missions and throughout Iraq. When I came back from Qatar, it was our 4-day pass. Each soldiers, they're eligible for a 4-day pass while they're there to Qatar. I came back and he was, they told me that he had passed away because of an IED. So he was on a mission, and he volunteered to go on a mission. He wanted to be with the soldiers at the time. Usually Truckmaster doesn't really go out on the road, so that's why I was surprised when that happened. Went out on the road, and an IED hit, and so he had passed away. And although, I mean, he wasn't within, by that time he wasn't within our battalion, so as a battalion, we didn't lose a soldier technically, but although that soldier still started out in our battalion, I mean, he left an impact. He was a good soldier. He was there always for his troops. He was there to support anything that I needed, and he was there to just to bring a good morale and keep that morale up forward. Because, like I said, they were turning and burning those vehicles and being out on the road, missions after missions, and after a while it takes a toll on a soldier. So when he passed away, it was a big loss, and I think that was the first person that that I knew that passed away in Iraq.
how do you feel about your mission while you were there, and if you think you accomplished it?
I feel that I accomplished. Becoming as a transportation officer, initially I was trained to be a quartermaster officer. So when they first selected me to become a transportation officer, I felt that I wasn't capable or qualified to have that position. I didn't think you actually could be mobilized in a position that you wasn't qualified for. So that was my concern, but they felt that I could do it and know that I had the ability to do it. So I said, okay. So when I got there, I picked up and learned from the unit that was there previously what the mission was. And then when they trained me, it was something small, but when they trained me and we started beginning our mission totally changed. It wasn't even anything that they actually trained me on. So I was learning, and I learned through a transportation battalion of what actually a transportation officer is supposed to do and what your actual responsibility was. So I hit the ground running, and as any person would do in that situation, and I learned that it's a big job, and I learned that soldiers was always on my mind. I mean, days were 14, 16-hour days, 14, 16-hour days, and I just know that that soldier was important because we had to provide the intelligence to them. We still excuse me. We still had to communicate through them, through our systems that we could communicate with them with that. And I mean, we had our radios and everything like that, but if they're on the road at night, we had to make sure that they're all right, and that was a concern. Mm-hmm. And for them just to be able, when they came in, they had to brief us on their mission, understand their mission, and know where they're going, because sometimes they get the maps and not everyone can read the map, and so they get lost, and that's a concern because we have to get them out of that area. So transportation, it was a big role, and it made me want to become a transportation officer when I came back. So I learned a lot, and I take pride in that position. I think it was one of my positions my favorite positions that I had in the military. Because
when did you come back?
I came back in 2005, December of 2005.
Okay. What are you doing now? What's your capacity now here at DMNA?
I'm a logistics management specialist, and I work still supporting the units, but still supporting them at getting their equipment up and make sure that they're maintained at that level. I mean, through maintenance and ensuring that they're inspecting their equipment. So at this level, at a higher command, we're just working through the MACOMs. It's a little bit more echelons above than working with that soldier, but knowing that that unit is getting the right equipment so they can go out the door to mobilize, we're still making an impact on the soldier.
Now, the units that are here, back here, guard units, do they have the up-to-date equipment?
The units back here?
Yes.
Right now, we're doing a lot of fieldings. A lot of fieldings are coming through of what I observed since I came back to National Guard Bureau. And I noticed that the vehicles, I know that we're trying to get them to have the, make sure that they have the proper vehicles. I know that before we left, they didn't, I mean, there were still World War II vehicles that were still out there in the units.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, right now, slowly but surely, I think that's changing with the, like I said, with the weapon systems. We're trying to have them go out with M4s instead of M16s. So I think it's just, we have to, I think it's small feats that we're trying to accomplish. But I think it's changing.
Mm-hmm. How do you think, you've been in the service since '92, how do you think that's changed you?
Initially, when I came in, I felt that it was something I could do for a little while. Do my first term, 6 years, I believe it was, and then go to school, GI Bill, the biggest key things that get you in for recruiting. Go to school and achieve that, but after 6 years, I would say, okay, I will leave after another year, or I leave after another year. But then it seemed like opportunities started knocking. So, I mean, those 6 years turned into 14 years. So, 14 years later, and I would think that it was like yesterday since I've joined. But I've learned a lot just dealing with people. I used to be a shyer person, I've noticed, when I was younger. So, just being able to be up front and be a little bit more outspoken and be a little bit expressing yourself much better than what I used to be able to do.
Now you received a bachelor's degree since
Yes.
you, where did you get that?
I got that through NIAC College,
Okay.
and that program was able to at least work with me to go through OCS, and was very convenient. So I was able to do both, which was a good program.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able, it came through the military, literally worked a lot with the military through our education office. So I was able to at least reap the benefits of tuition assistance that way, to at least pay for our course. So the military has provided me with a lot, I feel. I mean, I could take away from it. I mean, if I walk away from it today, I can say that I can walk away with a lot of abilities and skills that I can use for future positions if wherever I may go.
I guess, is there anything else you think you'd like to add, or?
No, I don't know. No. I just wanted to say thank you for at least giving me an opportunity to be here and discuss my experiences. I know that you don't think that what you do is great, but I guess what other people do think I mean, my husband tells me all the time that what you do is a good thing, but I guess me being a mix of it, you don't see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I appreciate you being able to listen to me. So
Well, thank you. It's our
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you.